Hi, I'm Meredith, and somewhere is my co-host Apollo. He might show up at some point. We just had ourselves a little ride, so he's doing his own thing right now. But this is Have Horse Will Travel, the Centaur Ride podcast, www.centauride.org. Links in the comments, not the comments, what the heck am I saying? You know, the description. Okay, anyway, today, by special request, is Storytime. I have brought my books, all 4 of them. I have more than 4 books, but my 4 short story books, all called Have Horse Will Travel, to read to you from them. We're gonna see how awkward this is. I wrote them. You'd think I'd be able to read straight from them. We're gonna see. Anyway, these books are all available on Amazon. Just search Have Horse Will Travel, Meredith Cherry, and they should all come up. There's also links in the description below. There's the first part, Pacific, which is the first half of my first year on the road with Apollo, crossing the country from California to Washington. And then the second part is Mountains. That's the second half of the first year from Washington to Kansas. That was a long time ago. Hard to remember. Okay, the third part is Heartland, and that is the second year, which is all in the Midwest. And the fourth part, Great Lakes, which is mostly the Great Lakes region and also the Northeast, from my third year on the road with Apollo. So those are the books, and that's what we're gonna read from today. I hope you are going to enjoy this. I hope Apollo decides to come over and visit at some point. We'll see. At the end I'll go find him if we haven't gotten a visit from our lovely co-host. Let's see, before I start reading I should probably do some other stuff like, let's see. Don't worry, no sponsorship to talk about because I don't have any. I know this is normally where that comes up in YouTube videos, right? But let's see. We talked last time. I know what the big news is. I was gonna say, that was 2 weeks ago. Lots happens in 2 weeks. So the big news right now is that we will not be having any more special guest Maverick. Don't worry, Maverick's okay. He's moved. He's just moved to his owner's property. They built him this nice barn and pasture, and so now they can keep him at their home instead of boarding him here. So he doesn't live here anymore. So right now Apollo is all alone in his gigantic pasture, and he's not really thrilled about it, but he's okay. When I brought him back from our ride today, the first thing, he ran around the pasture looking for his buddy, calling for his buddy. Maverick, are you back? Are you here now? Did you come back while I was gone? And sadly, no. So he's gone off and he's grazing now and he's fine. We just had to check because he and Maverick, they loved each other very much. So kind of sad, but this is how horse relationships go when you board and you only have one horse. You know, I'd love to get him his own special buddy that would be just his buddy that he could live with and bond with and would be there for him all the time. But that's not in the cards right now. So he'll make a new friend soon. I don't know when or who, but the horses are always being moved around here as people come and bring their horses, and you know, new boarders, and then other ones leave, like Maverick. So I'm sure he'll have a new friend soon, and then we'll have a great episode to look forward to where you can meet his new friend. But not yet, because I don't know. I have no information. So let's see, any other big news? I don't think so. I was in Monterey, California last weekend, taking a diving class for free diving, which is like scuba-ish. It's like between scuba and snorkeling. So you use more like, you know, a snorkel, not a scuba oxygen tank. And you hold your breath and you dive, but you go deep. So you have to hold your breath a long time. So anyways, that was a lot of fun. I have posted some pictures. I'll be posting more pictures. If you'd like to see my various pictures for Apollo, for my diving and my mermaid stuff and whatever I've been cooking, because I always post food pictures. I am on Facebook. You can search, oh well, there'll be links. Use the links. That's easier. Anyway, and I'm on Instagram too. Technically on Twitter, but I don't use it, so if you send me a message there, I'll probably never see it. So, I think that's all. It's summer now. Look, you can see my shoulders. Oh my gosh, it's finally warming up for sleeveless shirts. I'm so excited. And not too hot yet, so it's just wonderful out right now. We're getting real close to fire season. There's been a couple little fires already, which is pretty early in the year, I think. But, you know, it's part of living here. So I'm still planning on doing that fire safety for horse owners episode coming up. But I think that's a very important one, so I want to make sure that I actually put some thought and planning into it, unlike most of these episodes, in case you couldn't tell that these are all just 30 minutes of me talking and no cuts and no, you know, retaking because I screwed up what I was saying and following a script or what. It's completely unscripted. You could probably tell. Okay. Let's see. I guess that's all. So let's get to the books. So the first story, this is how completely unscripted and unprepared I am. It's like, oh, I should do that today. I didn't actually pick out any stories yet, but they're all great. So do I really need to plan ahead for that? Oh, let's do books for the road. I like that one. Books for the road. There's a picture of Apollo with his Apollo and me in front of a little free library. All right. I'm a major bookworm, and packing as little as possible in my saddlebags means, in my opinion, packing only one book. I just realized some people probably don't pack any books. Gosh, I can't even imagine. Okay, anyway. This leads to a conundrum at least once a week when I finish that book and need to replace it. Sometimes I can trade books with one of my hosts, but I also rely on the national network of little free libraries. These libraries are built, maintained, and stocked by bookworms in every state. They are usually located in front of people's yards, in people's front yards, but sometimes are constructed by and placed in front of a local business or school. There are no membership fees or records, although most member libraries do list their locations on the national website, which I use to locate them along my route. I will put that also in the description if I remember. Otherwise, you can Google little free libraries, it'll come up. Anyone can borrow a book, and many people who use their neighborhood little library will exchange a different book for others to read. The joy of these little libraries is in the randomness of what you'll find inside. Unlike a public library, the selection is extremely limited, often only a dozen or so books. Some little libraries are heavy on the romances, the thrillers, or the westerns, depending on who owns and uses it. No matter the flavor of the neighborhood, I can almost always find something interesting to read, and usually something out of my standard repertoire. Of course, everything is complicated when you're traveling by horse. I've had to pass up some especially enticing titles because they were too big or too heavy. I cannot carry hardbacks, and the paperbacks have to be the right size for the small space I've allocated them. Even with these limitations, though, I can never pass up the opportunity to peruse a little free library when I find one. So, little free libraries are awesome. I think, so this was from the first year. The particular one that I have the picture in the book of was in Corvallis or Eugene. I think it was Corvallis, Oregon. I did this the first year. I carried a paper book because I was needing to conserve my phone battery extremely. And then I got a new phone. And so after the first year, I didn't do this anymore, this little free library thing. I still love them. If I find them, there's a bunch in my community. So there's one in front of my house. So I'm still a huge supporter of little free libraries. But I don't step at them with Apollo anymore, because what's even lighter than a small paperback is an ebook. And so now I just read all books on my phone, which is real convenient and extra lightweight if I am able to keep my phone charged, which is a lot easier with my new phone. So, and some other things that I've done, like I now have these itty bitty battery things. I don't know what they're called. USB rechargeable battery things, and then you plug your phone into them. So I can go, I've not pushed it, I could probably go a week without charging my phone in a wall outlet if I had to, but it's not usually a problem. Anyway, moving on. Oh, let's do the next Corvallis story. Hail. This was a very exciting, this was actually the same afternoon as the book story was set in. So, anyway, by the time we reached the college town of Corvallis, Oregon, it had rained more days than not, but nothing worse than rain. No lightning, no snow, no hail. I didn't expect that to change on this particular day, which started off bright and sunny and would end that way too. Apollo and I had a pleasant ride through town. We made a much-needed stop at the bank, not something I'm able to accomplish often, found a little free library, and then noticed an Indian restaurant along our route where I decided to stop for samosas to go. Oh, those were good samosas. Oh my gosh. In the 10 minutes I was in the restaurant, the sky clouded over, and before Apollo and I even made it halfway across the parking lot, the sky let loose. Not rain this time, hail. Within minutes, the ground was covered in pea-sized ice, and it kept coming. I tried leading Apollo under the awning outside the restaurant, but the noise of the hail on the material over us scared him. I hung on as he bolted, slowing him down enough for me to guide him to another safe place to wait it out. Neither of us liked being pounded with hail, but standing in the middle of it made him... What did I write here? But standing in the middle of it made him mildly agitated, though not full out afraid. For the duration of the hailstorm, I walked him in circles in the delivery truck area behind the shopping center to keep him as calm as possible. As suddenly as it started, the storm cleared again, leaving behind a thick layer of hail that looked like fresh snow, but a whole lot more slippery and lumpy, and we continued on our way. So the picture is hard to see probably. It's my saddle with a layer of hail on it. And so it was real cold to sit on, so I didn't sit on it. I just walked and led him. So let's see, let's change books. Let's see, the second part. What's fun in here? This one's interesting. I feel like I might have read this one before. So if you've listened to my previous episode where I read the stories and I did read this one, or any of these, I apologize. I should have probably looked that up first, but I didn't. So, there might be some repetition in here, but there's enough stories it's not really likely. So, anyway, moving on. The Oregon Trail. Oh, here's the picture. When I planned my 10,000 mile route, looking more like 12,000 now. When I planned my 10,000 mile route, I took a lot of factors into consideration. Terrain, resources, donut shops, very important. Not once did I look at the historical trails that once dotted this country. When the western United States was first being settled, there were of course no roads. During the massive migrations of the mid to late 1800s, routes became established. These trails, such as the Oregon and California trails, the Pony Express, and supply trails, such as the Santa Fe, were more suggestions than roads, and in some places were miles wide. However, undeveloped and imprecise these trails were, though, they did have lots in common with each other and with my own choice of route. They were chosen because they were the best way to travel through a region using animal power. This meant that they and I stuck to the flattest, most direct path and as close to water as possible in this arid climate. Soon after I crossed into Idaho and began following the Snake River, I realized I was also following the Oregon Trail. This part of Idaho is very flat, much easier to ride across than the mountains to the north of the Snake River Valley. Though I could not access the river for water, the settlers would have. Instead of the river, I relied on the towns that had first sprung up along the valley as those migrants put down roots in the fertile landscape. The further I followed the trail, the more I appreciated the wisdom of those early travelers. I saw the buildings they left behind at the best watering holes, and tracks where their wagons had worn permanent grooves into the barren flats. I saw these things because I, with my modern technology to assess the best way to cross this land, decided to go the same way they did. I just think that's so interesting. So interesting. Let's see, let's skip ahead a little in this book. A lot of pictures, so there's not much to read here. Oh, this one was interesting. Okay. A spontaneous invitation. This picture's not going to be easy to see. Ugh. So there's some people, and there's a pile of rocks, and the people are moving the rocks by hand. Big rocks. Finally, I had left the mountains behind. So at this point in the book, I was like halfway through the book. This is talked about crossing the Rockies again, crossing the Tetons, not in that order. And so this is after lots and lots, like the whole book up to this point is mountains. That's why the book's called Mountains. Clever. Okay. Finally, I had left the mountains behind. It was quite a momentous occasion. I had been in the mountains or a valley between mountains almost constantly since I started riding on New Year's Day, and it was now the beginning of October. My plan to travel as quickly as I could through the vast nothingness that lies between eastern New Mexico and eastern Kansas. Winter would be coming soon, but for hundreds of miles there would be nowhere I could stop for the winter. The landscape was dotted with small towns and ranches, but no settlements big enough to have a boarding stable for Apollo, or an airport or bus terminal for me, because I wasn't going to stay in Kansas all winter. Yuck. Sorry, Kansas people. Love you. But I would not want to be there in the winter, and I needed to go home and see my family. So part of choosing a winter location is finding not just somewhere that's safe for Apollo, but somewhere that I can get myself from there back home, on a bus or a train or a Uber to the airport, and then in the spring come back again without having to rely on people to pick me up from the airport, which sometimes would happen, and those people are angels, and if those people are watching, thank you, you are angels. But I couldn't count on that. So anyway, as I hurried across the plains of New Mexico, though, I could not turn down the spontaneous invitation that I had received to stay at DeHaven Ranch for the weekend. This sprawling cattle ranch was holding a workshop on land conservation and land conservation and erosion control. This ranch was centered around what used to be the town of DeHaven. It was eventually abandoned. Now many of the original town buildings are used by the ranch. The small building in which I stayed, now the ranch bunkhouse, was once the post office. A dozen people from all walks of life had gathered in that idyllic and remote place to learn about erosion. A hotshot firefighter, a professional birder, a cyclist, and others just as diverse joined together to build zuni bowls and other drainage structures around the ranch. Carrying big rocks for 2 days was certainly not the most restful break from riding, but it was very interesting. So that was such a tiny snapshot. Like, I could probably talk a whole episode about my stay at this ranch because it was so cool. So, beautiful. This is on the plains of New Mexico. And once you get out of the mountains, it looks just like it's going to be flat, like Kansas. Just flat, flat, flat. But like Kansas, if you've really explored the state, there are hills in some places occasionally. And, the eastern part of the state is actually fairly hilly. So New Mexico plains also have some canyons and some hills. And so this one was tucked around a small stream, a little bit of hills. It was very pretty, very, very pretty. And really interesting people, really interesting workshop. So really fortunate that I was able to do that. Okay, let's switch books. Let's go to book 3. Book 3, Heartland. Oh, this was fun. Okay, so this was at the very beginning of my second year of riding. The story's called Sunday, the Cowboy Way. I don't know if you can see that picture. It's, they're doing cattle roping. Okay. I had been invited to attend churches of many denominations, but the most interesting of all was the Cowboy Church. It was just like a regular church service, but cowboyed up. The congregants wore their cleanest jeans and boots and nicest hats for church, which was held in a barn. Instead of the usual pastries and coffee for refreshments, they had a full biscuits and gravy breakfast. The typical church songs were sung as country western songs with a live band. The baptism was done in a stock tank. Really. The youth group's typical fundraisers included team roping events that were open for all ages and skills to participate, and a summer rodeo camp for kids. Rodeo camp? How cool is this? Oh my gosh. Just outside the church barn was, church/barn, was a full-sized rodeo arena complete with livestock chutes and horse stalls. Apollo and I were invited to stay for a night. He had a nice stall, and I camped out on the floor of the children's Sunday school building. It was the night of a team roping event. Apollo and I both watched from the sidelines for hours. It was still going on under the bright arena lights when I finally drifted off to sleep. So this was in Perry, Kansas, and it was so cool. Like, that was the most fun I've ever had going to church. I like going to church. I've been to, like it says in here, I've been to all different kinds of denominations. I've been to non-Christian religious services as well, not just Christian, and I just like that kind of thing. But, you know, sometimes they're boring. This is not boring. This was just, it was fun. It was just like, the music was fun. The people were wonderful, and then there was horse stuff afterwards. They had the team roping, and it was like attending your own private rodeo at the church. It was just cool. So anyway, no, we did not participate in the team roping. Apollo is not a roping horse. He probably would have been like, you want what? We're doing what? Running? Running? I don't run. What is this? I'm a walking horse. Not the breed. But that's what we do. He walks. So, let's see. Oh, this was a fun one. This was like a little language barrier, even though it was all in English. Apollo's favorite bakery. He's got in the picture there, he's got a cream horn. Yes, I feed my horse cream horns. Not very often. Okay. Apollo's favorite bakery. In the bakery, you probably couldn't see in the picture, there's a sign over him. Oh, it's too much to hold. The sign there with the name of the bakery. It's just called Bakery and Coffee Bar. That's the name of the shop. Bakery and Coffee Bar. I had to pre-read that sentence. I reached Flandreau. I cannot. I'm glad I put the pronunciation in here because still throws me. It's spelled Flandreau. So it's spelled like a French word, which I have a minor in French. So every time I see it, I want to say Flandreau because it's spelled Flandreau. But it's not Flandreau, it's Flandreau. Okay, got it? Flandreau. So, I reached Flandreau, rhymes with Andrew, at lunchtime, and decided to stop in at what the sign said was a bakery and coffee bar. I tied Apollo outside, dreaming of pastries and cappuccino. The door chimed as I went in, and a middle-aged woman appeared, her apron covered in flour. I ordered a cream horn and an apple turnover from the display case, and then looked around for the coffee menu. Would you please do me a favor? Go in the comments below. Drop me a comment. When you hear the word coffee bar, what do you think a coffee bar would serve? Don't say coffee. Like, what kind of coffee? What type of menu? Just maybe take a second here and think about it before I tell you what they have. Okay? Do you think they would have A selection? What kind of selection? Okay, let's continue the story. What coffee selection do you have? I innocently inquired when I couldn't find any signs or menu. The owner looked at me blankly. Selection? Yes, I don't see a menu. Oh, I feel like such a silly Californian. Okay, anyway. By the way, this is South Dakota. I didn't say that. I said Flandreau, but I didn't tell you what state. So, take from that what you will. Okay. Selection? Yes, I don't see a menu. Another blank look. A pause. We have regular and decaf. Now it was my turn to pause. They called this a coffee bar? I decided to pass on the coffee. That makes me sound like a real coffee snob. I have nothing against regular versus decaf, but... Anyway, I decided to pass on the coffee and paid for my pastries, then stood outside to share the cream horn with Apollo. A few minutes later, the owner came out to chat and to pet Apollo. Would your horse like a Scotchie? We have a customer that buys a dozen a week for his horses. Naturally, I couldn't turn down a cookie for Apollo. He appreciatively gobbled it up. As I was finishing up my snack, an older woman came over to visit. After we talked a while, she offered to buy me something from the bakery. I declined, having already eaten, but when she insisted, I said that Apollo liked the Scotchies. She promptly went in and got him a half dozen, which I doled out over the next few days. He didn't mind when they got a little stale and crumbly in my pocket. I'm sure if you were to ask him, he would agree that it was his favorite bakery. Caveat up to that point. I don't know if he'd say it's his favorite now, because we've been to some other bakeries since then where he also got some really good stuff that were probably also tied for favorite. But Scotchies, if you've never had a Scotchie, there is a recipe in this book, or you can of course Google it. Scotchies are oatmeal butterscotch. And so it's like a basic oatmeal cookie, but you put butterscotch chips in it. So good. Apollo agrees. They're so good. So, anyway, that I think is enough for today. And where did that horse go? Let's go say hi to Apollo. And then you'll just have to wait another few weeks for the next episode. All right. I think he's up there. So I'm just hanging out in his pasture. I was trying to film somewhere that I could sit on my tripod and sit down, but that didn't work out. So anyway, oh, there's my horse. There he is. Apollo, come say hi to your fans. It's like, what? So it's fly season again. And so he's got his fly mask on. His nice red one. When he has a friend, he always ends up taking it off. Let's see, with him just being in the pasture by himself, if he actually keeps it on, or if it just doesn't work for him, because he gets itchy and then he rubs, and then rubs it right off. But anyway, here's the guy. Hi, Apollo. What you think? Yeah? Okay. You want to say bye to everybody? Okay. Thanks for watching. We'll be back in a few weeks. Bye.